For most of human history, you could cross the world without papers. Think about that. A merchant in 1850 could board a steamship in London, sail to New York, change boats for South America, and step ashore without ever showing a document that proved who he was. No booth, no stamp, no officer deciding whether your body was allowed to be there. A traveler could move across most of the planet the way you now move between two rooms in your house. The door was simply open, and then almost overnight it closed. In the space of a few years, the open world became a world of checkpoints. A small paper booklet appeared in everyone's pocket, and suddenly it decided where your body was permitted to exist, where you could go, where you could work, whether the officer at the desk waved you through or turned you back. You have carried this thing your whole life and assumed it was ancient. It is not. The passport you know is barely 100 years old, younger than your great-grandparents. So here is the question this episode is going to chase. Who put a checkpoint around your body, and why did they do it so recently? To feel how strange the passport is, you have to picture the world that did without it. For the entire 19th century, much of the planet ran on open movement. Britain, the most powerful empire on Earth, required no passport to enter and none to leave. You could arrive, settle, and work, and no one asked for papers. Across most of Europe, the same was broadly true. People crossed frontiers to trade, to harvest, to escape, to start over, and the border did not stop them. Where a passport did exist, it was usually not what you think. It was a letter. A noble or a king would write a note asking that the bearer be allowed safe passage, that local officials treat this traveler kindly and let him pass. The word itself tells the story. Passport, permission to pass through a port or through the gates of a walled town. It was a courtesy, a letter of introduction from someone powerful. It was not a leash. It did not pin you to one country. It did not sort the human race into citizens and foreigners. It opened doors. It did not lock them. So the document existed here and there, but it pointed outward like a recommendation. Something turned it inward into a control, and that something has a date. Go back further and the passport is even gentler, almost quaint. The idea is genuinely ancient. There is a line in the Hebrew Bible, in the book of Nehemiah, where an official traveling on the king's business carries letters to the governors of the provinces asking that he be allowed safe passage. That is, in essence, a passport, a request from power that the roads be opened for this person. For thousands of years, that is mostly what it stayed, a letter of safe conduct. Medieval kings issued them. Renaissance princes issued them. They were personal, occasional, and rare, and they assumed that the natural state of a traveler was to move. The letter just smoothed the way a good word from your employer might smooth a job interview. Notice what is missing. There is no photograph because photography did not exist. There is no standard size, no fixed format, no list of which countries will honor it. There is no machine reading it. There is no central state recording your every crossing. The document trusts you. It vouches for you. It is on your side. Which raises the obvious question. How did a friendly letter turn into a border guard? What event was violent enough and frightening enough to slam the open world shut? The answer is the First World War. When the war broke out in 1914, the open world died in a matter of months. Suddenly, every government on the continent was gripped by the same terror. The enemy was not just in the trenches. The enemy might be the stranger on the train, the man with the foreign accent, the traveler who could be a spy, carrying secrets across a frontier that, until yesterday, anyone could cross. So the states reached for control, and the tool they reached for was the passport. Britain passed an emergency law and in 1915 issued a new kind of document. For the first time, it carried a photograph and a physical description of the bearer. Height, eyes, shape of the face. The state was no longer vouching for you. It was identifying you, the way a police force identifies a suspect. And it was not only about spies. A nation at war needed to keep its own people in. It needed its young men for the army, its workers in the factories. The passport became a way to control who left as much as who entered, to hold a population in place. These were meant to be temporary, wartime measures to be lifted when the guns fell silent. But the war ended and the doors did not reopen. The checkpoint had been built, and once a state can see every body that crosses its line, it does not give that power back. Here is the part almost no one knows. The little book in your drawer, the one that feels timeless, was designed by a committee, in a specific room, in a specific year. After the war, the world was a mess of mismatched papers. Every country had thrown together its own emergency document, and none of them agreed. A traveler might carry a passport one nation honored and another rejected. Movement had not just been restricted, it had been thrown into chaos. So in 1920, the new League of Nations called a conference in Paris on passports and through tickets. And there, officials did something quietly enormous. They standardized the passport. They agreed on a shape, a small booklet, 32 pages, roughly the size you still hold today. They agreed it should be printed in at least 2 languages, one of them French. They specified the photograph. They specified the pages for visas and stamps. They fixed how long it should be valid. They were not trying to imprison anyone. They believed they were making travel work again, smoothing a broken world. Many of them hoped these controls would soon fade away. But standards are powerful in a way their makers rarely intend. Once the whole world agrees on the shape of a thing, that shape becomes the truth. The 1920 booklet did not fade. It hardened. It spread to every nation on Earth. And the design choices made by a handful of officials in a Paris meeting are almost unchanged. The document that now decides where you are allowed to go. Now we reach the deepest part, the thing the passport really did. It did not just track you. It sorted you. Think about what the booklet requires. To issue you a passport, a state must first decide that you belong to it, that you are one of its citizens and not someone else's. The document cannot exist without that judgment, and the instant it makes that judgment about you, it makes the opposite judgment about everyone else. This is the quiet revolution. Before the modern passport, the sharp line between citizen and foreigner barely operated in daily life. You were a subject of a king, perhaps, or a member of a town, but you could move through the world without that label being checked at every door. The passport made the label real. It welded a person to a state and stamped it into a book. From now on, at every border, the first question is not who are you as a human being. It is which state owns you. And that single question creates 2 kinds of people out of one species. Citizen and foreigner, insider and outsider, the one who may pass and the one who may be turned away. Freedom of movement, which for most of history was simply what humans did, became something else. It became a privilege, something a state grants and can refuse. The open road did not just close. It was divided, person by person, into those allowed to walk it and those who were not. Once you see the passport as a sorting machine, you cannot unsee what it grew into. Because not all passports are equal, they never were. The booklet does not only say which state you belong to, it silently assigns you a rank. The passport of one country might open more than 180 borders without asking permission in advance. The passport of another might open barely 30. Same booklet, same 32 pages designed in Paris, wildly different lives. This means the single most powerful factor deciding where your body may travel on this planet is something you did nothing to earn and could never choose. The place you happen to be born. An accident of geography, recorded in a book, becomes a wall or an open gate for the rest of your life. And the document is honest about its own logic if you read it closely. A passport is not really yours. Look at the fine print in many of them, and you will find that the booklet remains the property of the issuing state. It is lent to you. It can be revoked. The thing that proves you are free to move is owned by the very power that decides whether you may. This is the turn. The passport was sold to the world as a key, but a key that someone else owns and can take back is not a key. It is a permission slip, and the open world of your great-grandparents had no need of one. So if the passport was meant to be temporary, a wartime emergency, why is it still here, tighter than ever, a century later? Because a checkpoint once built almost never comes down. Every power the passport gave the state turned out to be too useful to surrender. It lets a government count its people, tax them, conscript them, and know exactly who is inside its lines and who is not. It lets a nation decide who may come to work and who may not. In a frightened century, the ability to see and sort every traveler became not an emergency tool, but the ordinary furniture of government. No state was ever going to hand that back. And we helped. We learned to want it. We came to feel that the booth, the stamp, the queue, the officer studying our photograph were simply how the world has always worked. Safety, we were told, requires the checkpoint. Order requires the line. A country that cannot control its borders, we are warned, is not really a country at all. So the temporary became permanent, then became invisible. The strangest part is not that the passport was imposed. It is that within 2 generations, we forgot there had ever been an open world to lose. A century ago, your great-grandparents could cross an ocean on nothing but a ticket. Today you cannot cross a single line without a booklet that a committee designed and a state can revoke. And almost no one alive remembers that it was ever any other way. So reach into the drawer and pick it up again. That small booklet, 32 pages, a photograph, a few stamps. It feels as natural and as permanent as the ground under your feet. Now you know what it really is. A wartime emergency that never ended. A shape agreed by a committee in Paris in 1920. A letter of safe passage that someone somewhere turned inside out until it stopped opening doors and started guarding them. For most of human history, a person could cross the world without papers. Then, in the span of a few terrified years, a checkpoint was built around your body, and a book was issued that decides, to this day, where you are allowed to exist. No one asked you. The men who designed it never knew your name, and yet between them they drew an invisible fence around you that follows you everywhere, decides which borders open and which stay shut, and quietly ranks your one life by the accident of where it began. You were handed a permission slip and taught to feel it as freedom. You were given somebody's recent decision and taught to feel it as the natural shape of the world. The strangest part isn't that they closed the open world. It's that we forgot it was ever open and came to thank them for the lock. Which makes you wonder what else in your ordinary, settled, obvious life is really somebody's recent decision, wearing the costume of something eternal. That's what this channel is for. I'm glad you're here and I'll see you next time.